There's a very famous story from the time of the Buddha of a woman who came to the awakened one, grieving over the death of her child. And she'd been directed there because her members of her community had said, this awakened one, this Buddha can help you. And the Buddha gave her this task. He said, I can help you. Go around the community, go around the village and the surrounds, and collect a small cup of mustard seeds from the houses of the people who have not experienced the loss of death. And she went around, and clearly you know, and perhaps you've heard, but it's obvious, that there was nobody, there was no household where that had not been the case. This relationship with death is one that we as humans have had a problematic relationship with for forever. And the awakened ones have invited us to recognize that no matter how much we try to ignore death, death will not ignore us. Death is part of our life. Just as the trees right now are falling, and death is part of our lives. When we think about our own sense of self, our own beliefs, our own identities, our goals, death is part of our life. And COVID, of course, has made it clear, unavoidably clear, that death is part of our lives, and that we need to include it. We need to include its fierce teachings. And this is what the spiritual practices of all wisdom traditions and of meditation in the yoga tradition allows us to cultivate. Because in the meditative practice, in spiritual practice, we experience, not cognitively, but in an embodied way, we experience the process of birth, death, and rebirth. We see and we feel the emergence and the disillusionment, with the emerging and the dissolving away of identity, of thought, of sensations. We experience the very structures of our sense of reality, of self and of world, arising and dissolving into stillness. So in meditation, we learn to accept, and then we learn to appreciate, and then we learn to experience the awe of that beautiful arising and passing away. And we discover in that awe something profound, that there is, let's call it something, that is present throughout the cycle of birthing, of deathing, and of rebirthing. And it's not so accurate to call it something, because it's not a thing, it's not a thought, it's not an emotion, it's not a belief, it's not a sensation. It's not something to be observed, because it is not an object. Yet it is present. Clearly it's present, undeniably it is ever present. Now mystics and meditators, sages and seekers around the world for millennium have named this ever-present mystery in different ways. They've called it God, and different names for God, called it consciousness, they've called it emptiness. The name, the label, it's not important. It's just important for you to find your way of gently remembering, and continuing to cultivate and awaken your communion with that ever-presence that is arising and dying and being reborn as your life, as life itself. So we come to this intimate revelation that life transcends and includes death. That death does not happen to life, but that death happens in life. That life transcends death, life transcends and includes birth. Life is another word for that all that isness, for that ever-presence. And that you are that. This is the whispered truth from the Upanishads. You are that. You're not apart from it in any way. And with this awareness, the natural relationship with all the little and big deaths in your life begin to reconfigure themselves. Whether it's the death of a relationship, of a job, of an ability, or even of your own body. We begin to recognize that there's a sacred function for death, a renewing function. And as we abide more and more in the ever-presence of our deeper nature, again, acceptance, appreciation, and awe of that function deepens. And along with that is the recognition that those loved ones in our lives who have passed on are also ever present. That their form has changed, but their beingness and your connection to that beingness, your intimacy with it, your inter-beingness, to use Thich Nhat Hanh's beautiful expression, is also ever present. And thus in the meditation, you can bless them, you can commune and heal those memories and those souls. And in the process, you can heal. This is a deeper dimension of meditation where death becomes a doorway into ever-present communion.